From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Ticats Today with Steve Milton.
It's Monday, May 13th. This is Ticats Today, and I'm Steve Milton. I've been at Ticat practice all morning, of course, as the team took the field for the first full workout of 2024. And before you even ask, I'll tell you. Levi Mitchell was out there without his walking boot. He had KT tape, a brand of tension athletic tape, down at the back of his right calf. He took about 30 throwing reps and said he felt really strong in his right leg, which had been swollen. Now, taking the safe road, he didn't take part in the full 12-on-12 drills, just in pass reception drills and what's called skelly. 6 eligible receivers against 7 or 8 defenders. You don't want any accidents there. Head coach Scott Milanovich says the plan is to bring Mitchell gradually into full duty, and there will be load management blueprint for him at training camp, and also some other veterans during the entire camp. His staff and the medical training staff will also take feedback from the quarterback on how he's feeling. Milanovich said the lower leg swelling was related to the injury Mitchell suffered in that win over Ottawa last year, which put him out for the second time in the season. Meanwhile, Taylor Powell, newly signed to a contract extension through 2025, was the primary quarterback, and he was in total command. He made some excellent throws, threw up some jump balls that were catchable only by his tall receivers, not by the defenders, and he threw one low bullet to Tim White through an aggressive defender, which the all-star receiver caught as if he'd just taken a bath in crazy glue. There are 5 quarterbacks in camp, but one is on the Canadian internship program that the CFL introduced 14 years ago and has included the likes of Trey Ford. Now, that's more about getting the feel of CFL life and getting to target pro receivers with their precise cuts and patterns. Joining the Ticats is Taylor Elgersma from Wilfrid Laurier, who led U Sports in passing yards, completions, and pass percentage last season and was second in rushing touchdown. But he'll return to school, though. And auditioning for the third spot behind Mitchell and Powell are Kevin Thompson, who appeared in 2 games for the BC Lions 3 years ago before being hurt last year, and Harrison Frost from West Georgia. Frost is a prime example of how the CFL might benefit from the merger of the USFL and XFL into the single entity UFL. That cut down the number of jobs available for depth quarterbacks, which in turn helped send Frost up here. Now, the club already had a connection because Frost has been with Seattle of the XFL, and one of the coaches there was the legendary June Jones, who, of course, had been head coach here and still maintains close contact with Rolando Steinauer and others in the organization. Milanovich also mentioned that the UFL merger has also helped attract offensive tackles up north this spring. That used to be a no-problem situation for the CFL, but in recent years, the American supply chain of those large lads, those important large lads, had become increasingly thin. Now, after conditioning work yesterday, the Ticats had a regular full practice today and will go to a power practice, translation, that's like the old two-a-days, on Tuesday morning. 8:30 a.m. is the start if you're up and interested in coming. What we'll see then is what we already knew, but started to really witness in person today, that there are a zillion battles all over the field, most notably at receiver. To me, Shamar Bridges, who's just 6'4", and he appears even taller, looked really good. Now, he's out of Fort Valley State, and if you've never heard of it, which I hadn't, it's a Division II school in Georgia. Also looking good and confident was the man beside him in what for the moment can be loosely called the A unit. That'd be Justin McGriff, only 6'6" of him. He had that horrific accident at the end of last year's camp, and he talked to Ticats Today on the weekend about it. I'd advise you to check that out on our site. And something Scott Milanovich has hinted at all season became very clear today. The Cats offense is committed to creating some kind of NFL-style tight end package. We'll parse that grouping as the week progresses, and there's more evidence of it. But at first glance, I like the work of Michael Ezeki, who's 6'5" and 250 pounds and played at UCLA. So he's got primetime pedigree, and I know this sounds a bit simplistic, he just looks like a pro. Still, he arrived only on Saturday. It's a new game in a new country, and it's professional, not college football. So there are and will be some adjustment evolutions for him. Going back to the battles with veteran left tackle Joel Figueroa on the 6-game injury list, there are 3, maybe 4 front runners for the 2 offensive tackle positions at the moment, and they'll rotate both sides during camp. Massive Jordan Murray, who played 7 games for the Cats last year, seems like a keeper to me, and perhaps a starter on the left side until Figueroa is ready. And there's also Brandon Kemp in his 3rd year as a Ticat, and fellow returnee Kendrick Sarter. And a newcomer the organization really likes is Brendan Bordner, a rookie out of Florida Atlantic, who is a bit of a development project because he played offensive line well into his college career. Now, when I mentioned that, though, to Scott Milanovich, he said he felt Bordner already looks pretty polished. Turning to another battle, although I'm not sure it's all that undecided, you may recall that the Ticats lost both place kicker Seth Small and punter Bailey Flint by August last season, and both because of personal reasons. But Flint has returned. It just happened on the weekend. And that's a big thing because the Aussie was just coming into his own in the Canadian game, and that will create competition with Norwegian Corey Vedvik, whom the Ticats had to obtain by trading Antonio Pipkin to Saskatchewan last year when Flint had to leave. Like Vedvik, Flint is an interesting story, and we'll talk to him later in the week. We could talk from here to next Sunday about the opening day of full practices. There are, after all, is about 85 or so players, all with their own interesting life stories, but we'll get to chunks of them every day. And right now, I'll switch to our notes package, which, in honor of the longtime Ticats fan club, we'll call Cats Clauses. So, in reviewing some of the Ticat moves on the weekend as they had to get down to their 85 players, there were a couple of interesting indicators. National defensive lineman Mo Diallo, for whom both the NFL and Ticats once had very, very high hopes, was released. That ups the stock of third-year Cat Anthony Federico and the other Canadian defensive lineman. And with the retirement of Canadian linebacker Jordan Williams, the Cats need defensive Canadian depth behind Mason Bennett, who should be an integral part of the defensive line. Now, I want you in your minds to imagine now bold-faced dotted lines, ... between these notes. So, ... Versatile receiver and Hamilton native Tyler Chernowski was put on the injured veteran list, and wide receiver Cameron Batson went on the suspended list. Now, Batson had been one of the candidates for a punt return job, although that competition is a little less urgent now that Lawrence Woods III has returned to Hamilton late last week after the BC Lions cut him loose. And Saturday's release of receiver Terry Godwin, who had six touchdowns, and nearly 1,000 yards last year, was a reflection of Tim White returning, but more so that the team wants to get taller at most receiving positions. It's one of the main themes of this camp and has been all off-season. And speaking of Tim White, one of the things that we keep talking about here on Ticats Audio Network is providing a deeper look at the players and the movers and shakers of this team. And Tim really helped us out with that over the weekend when he arrived. If you missed his interview about the hardships, and I mean hardships, he faced growing up, which might have prevented a different kind of person from reaching college and CFL stardom, I strongly suggest going to our website to give it a look and a read. Now, while we're on that, also check out Tim talking to now retired teammate Simone Lawrence, which should be posted within the next day or so. Tim and Sim, that definitely will not be grim. Oh, geez. Okay, from Rhyming Simon, we'll segue into a sign-off. Again, we're always grateful that you've tuned in. Thank you all, and please continue to do so. That's it for Ticats Today. I'm Steve Milton.
This has been Ticats Today with Steve Milton. Catch it on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and anywhere else you get your podcasts.